So today, we'll cover three topics. First is how do you define emerging markets and why you should build for it. Second is looking at the users within emerging markets, how they're different from users from other area. And then last, I want to cover two startups in Indonesia, which I think are very fascinating. So when we think about emerging markets, what I want to start with is we should look at the current internet user levels in different regions and what's the possibility of each region, right? So when you look at Asia, you see that it has about 53% current internet user levels, but there's a lot of runway for future users to come online. However, they're not online yet. You can see the same thing with Africa. The other regions, majority of the users are already online. So when I think about emerging markets, when we think about emerging markets for Cormo, we think about these two areas, Asia and Africa, because that's where new users will come online. But are they ready to come online? And what I looked at and what we looked at Cormo was we looked at Gapminder data. Gapminder is a non-profit out of Sweden. They look at economic development, and they built this framework called income levels. And they took the population of the world and divided them into 4 areas based on how much an individual earns on a daily basis. So, for example, someone in level 2 earns about $2 to $8 per day, and this has all been calibrated for purchase power parity, that data. And then what they did was they took this framework and photographed people from different parts of the world who fell in this income level. And what they found was no matter where you lived, what dictated what the stuff you had or how you led your life was based on your income level. So someone in income level 1 had a similar bed around the world versus someone in level 4. They had a similar bed, regardless if you're in Asia or in Europe, right? For today's talk, what I'll do is I'll show you the phones they have, because that's kind of tells us are they internet enabled or not. But I encourage you to look at the Gapminder data for other activities, which will be helpful for your products. So what you can see here is jumping from level 2 to level 3, users are introduced to smartphone, and that's a big jump, going from a phone that only had buttons, going to a phone that is touch. People are not used to the new paradigm where you have to use your phone gestures, right? Like you zoom in, how do you navigate through apps? So as product managers, you have to think about when you're building for emerging market users, how might we solve user experience issues who are not used to new kind of gestures on the phone, right? So this becomes critical. What I wanted to show you next was if you take the income level framework and layer in the number of people in different regions, you see interesting patterns. The pink here is Asia, the blue here is Africa, the green here is Americas, both north and south, and the yellow is Europe. So what you can see here is both Africa and Asia, majority of them are below level 3, which means that majority of them are still not on smartphones yet. And we saw that from the graph earlier. And what's expected is in the next 10 years, you'll see about 1 billion users, mainly from Asia and Africa, move into level 3 or above, which brings in a huge opportunity to build products for these new users who will be connected to the internet for the first time. So just to recap, I know that was a lot of economics and a lot of data. Just to recap, what's really happening is there's a demographic shift. There is a huge opportunity for Asia and Africa. Because of economic development, they will enter level 3 within the next 10 years. And lastly, we didn't although cover this, but what we've seen from our research is in these markets, you have really cheap smartphones. They are internet connected. These users have access to the same information as we do. But the devices are like $50, which is incredible. Like if you can buy a device for $50 and get access to the information that's on the web is life-changing. So that's why we think right now is the time to invest in emerging market products. Let's look at the users, right? What we have seen from our product at Cormo is users in emerging markets who are coming online right now, they're not mobile first. They're mobile only. What this means is Like I have a laptop, a smartphone. Most users in these regions only have a smartphone. And not only that, sometimes they have a shared smartphone. So a family would have one smartphone they all share, and they remember the good old days when we had one TV and we would all fight over the remote. So it's something like that. And in some cases, some users have two smartphones, one low end, one high end. What's happening in these markets is a high end phone is aspirational. It's like a status symbol. Like if you can afford an iPhone, you have made it. So users try to buy a used iPhone just to show up among their friends. So as product managers, this becomes an interesting problem. When you have a shared phone, how do you solve for privacy? Because if your product is dealing with highly sensitive user data, you need to make sure that others don't have access to it. With our product in Karma, we have to think about this like with shared accounts. If you have two devices, how do you make sure the data you have on two devices are connected? Because at the end of the day, you're the same user, but you have two devices, you have two SIMs, right? So those are some of the challenges you have to think about. Um, Another interesting thing we learned was users in these markets prefer audio input. And one of the main reasons they prefer audio input is because of literacy level. And the other reason is your keyboard in non-English regions really bad. They pretty much suck. It's horrible. However, our speech to text technology has improved a lot. Not just Google, but like as most tech companies, it's amazing now. But like even in a lot of chat apps, we've noticed that they rather do voice notes than type in a message. The other thing we've noticed is because of literacy levels, users prefer visual user interfaces. So as product managers, when you're trying to build user interfaces for emerging markets, think about, do we need this heavy text to explain users how you should onboard, right? You should try and think about, can we use visual cues to drive user engagement, drive user conversion, rather than using text to drive user conversion. And another, I just wanted to mention about video is YouTube is number one in India. Like people spend their like probably like a bunch of hours on YouTube. So video is a great medium to connect with the users. So whenever you think about new users, how do you teach users to use your product? How might we leverage video in your product to do that? So when we build our product for Cormo, like we faced this, users could not read or write, so we had to use video and audio together, especially for onboarding, to teach them how to use the product. We are experimenting how we can use Google Assistant embedded in the product so that you can have a more interactive experience. We haven't solved it. It's definitely a big problem. Building for this user segment is not easy. Low digital confidence. So users who move from income level 2 to income level 3 just need things in a smartphone. They don't know what will happen if you tap here or tap there. So what you have to think about, what we thought about is like, again, in onboarding, how might we teach them that if you press here, this is what's going to happen. Or when we release a new feature, how do we improve feature discovery with a visual component rather than just doing a text overlay saying that, hey, if you click here, you can book a ticket faster or whatnot, right? So that's what you think about. Another big issue is because you have cheap phones, $50 phones, those phones have very low specs. They might only have 8 gigabytes of storage. What ends up happening is users delete apps. So you need to think about your app size. Our app is 7 megabytes. The way we position our app is if you delete 2 selfies, you can install our app. And people get that because people don't understand what is 7 megabytes. Like even I don't physically know what is 7 megabytes, right? I know like if I delete 2 selfies, that makes space in our product. So that goes back to localization. Like I localized what you and I might know as 7 megabytes, but for them, 7 megabytes like 2 selfies. So that's what I mean by localization. And again, localization I mentioned is hard. Um, in India, what makes it even harder is something they call English, which is a combination of English and Hindi written in English. And trying to, because when users start interacting with you in English, our chatbots just fail. They don't even know what the chatbots don't know what to do. Right? So we haven't cracked that yet, but there's some things to know about, right? Yeah, these are some challenges to think about. let me talk about India specifically. India, if you think from a product point of view, is actually not one country. You have different dimensions to think about. You have a lot of users in level 4, as we saw, and then a lot of different languages, right? So when you think about India, if you think about the big metros like New Delhi, Mumbai, Bangalore, they operate almost like you are here, right? Like you have amazing network, amazing bandwidth, cheap bandwidth. So it's fine there. But when you start going outside these metros, what India calls like tier 2, tier 3 cities, that's where you have poor network. We struggle with that. The user segment we're targeting are usually in tier 2 and tier 3 cities. And you need to think about, whenever building products here, you need to have a setup in a way that allows you to test, your product in a 3G network or a 2G network. At Google, we are pretty fortunate that this is like built into our ecosystem where you can just switch your Wi-Fi to a 3G and it simulates how your product would behave in a 3G environment. Yeah, so I hope that kind of helps you see why you should build for emerging markets and how the users look like, right? So I think that's kind of a good overview. The next I want to just talk about two startups that I think are amazing. These startups are from Indonesia. Okay, maybe you've seen these startups, maybe not. Um, one is called Wayu, the other one's called HelloSys. These are pretty early on in their journey, but why I like them is they are leveraging technology to address some really local needs, and they're doing an amazing job. Uh, let's look at HelloSys. So in Indonesia, Instagram is like number one. It's really big. People find jobs on Instagram. People buy things on Instagram. Everything happens on Instagram. Messages the vendor say I want to buy this, and then they decide on where to meet, and then decide how to pay, all on WhatsApp. And then from the retailer side, they manage the inventory, manage the finances either on pen and paper or on a spreadsheet. This is a hot mess. Right? This is not going to stay, right? What HelloSys wants to do is improve your purchase journey so that you have better conversion and you can grow your business. And then from back office point of view, how might we improve your bookkeeping? How might we improve your fulfillment? How might we improve your money collection after you buy and sell something? So they're doing it in two different ways. They have introduced a chatbot, but what the journey now looks like is you start from Instagram and switch over to HelloSys chatbot, and you pay for the product over the chatbot, or you pay at cash on delivery, which is very big. Indonesia has a huge population that's unbanked. Most of them have wallets, and they just use that to pay for products. From the vendor point of view, what's happening is they've built a mobile-only product that has dashboard management, dashboard inventory management, and fulfillment. Um, Going back to our users, they don't have a web application for the desktop. So inventory is now real time because before it was on WhatsApp, right? And then I would have to go back either in pen and paper or in a spreadsheet to track it. So the buyers are still on Instagram. They're not replacing Instagram. The users will be on the regular channels. You have Instagram, there's Pinduoduo, Tokopedia. They will still be there. What they're replacing is your purchase journey on WhatsApp, because WhatsApp is great to prototype and communicate, but not really great with tracking your inventory or tracking who has communicated or sold the stuff. Yeah. So in that case, the user would be like, okay, send you a link saying that let's continue the conversation here, right? Yeah. But it's still, I agree, it's not great yet, so they need to solve that as well. So they haven't solved it yet. Next, I want to talk about Wayu. What this is a typical uh, eatery in Jakarta. It's called Warteg. But what's cool about this is like this is a family-run eatery or restaurant in your neighborhood, and it's passed down generation by generation. Like someone working here could be like fourth or fifth generation owner, and by the time they're done for the day, they don't have enough time to grow their user base. So they are really strapped for how do they get more customers, how do they increase revenue. So what Wayu is trying to do is how might we increase foot traffic for these uh, uh, hole in the wall restaurants, and how might we also help them with their supply chain? Because right now, what the restaurant owners do is they get up 3 in the morning to go to farmers market to buy their produce. It's not sustainable. And by the time they're done, it's like around 8 p.m. Right? So they go to bed, and then they have to do this day in and out. What Wayu is doing is three things. Um, they're helping with user growth and revenue growth. How? By having online delivery. So think about Uber Eats, but these are all the ways, all the wartags on the app, and you can select any wartag, and you as a user can order it, and where you would deliver the food. So the wartag does not need to attract the user because the user will come through the app, and the wartags that are online, they have seen amazing growth. This growth actually causes problem with supply chain. Now you need to buy more produce to, cater to the new user growth. Wayu is solving that as well. So Wayu, because now they have a delivery network for the food to the end user, now what they have done is they're delivering the produce to the restaurant. You can order through the Wayu portal how much produce do you need per week, and it'll get delivered to you. This is a very similar model as how franchises work here. Like if you think about a McDonald's or a Subway, they order it online. Like the franchises don't go to the grocery store and buy the product. Like the produce comes to your store. Um, the other improvement that Wayu is doing for these restaurant owners is digitization. Because most of the products are ordered online, you get paid online. So you get paid faster rather than having to deal with cash and then going to the bank to deliver that. And last, Wayu is providing training to these restaurant owners how to have a cleaner restaurant, how to have better customer interaction, and how you use digital technology to improve your growth for your revenue. Right. So I think overall, it's pretty amazing what they're doing.